From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Proposition 8 is a discriminatory law that hurts people. It hurts gays and lesbians in California, and it hurts the children we're raising, and it does so for no good reason. It is our hope that we can move forward and remove this harm from society so that gays and lesbians in California can go back to their lives living equally alongside their neighbors with the same rights and protections as everyone else.
In an historic day at the Supreme Court, the justices hear the first of two cases involving same-sex marriage. The justices appear divided on whether to overturn California's Proposition 8.
Traditional marriage has been around for thousands of years. Same-sex marriage is very new. I think it was first adopted in the Netherlands in 2000. So there isn't a lot of data about its effect. And it may turn out to be a good thing. It may turn out not to be a good thing, as the supporters of Proposition 8 apparently believe.
We'll play recordings of some of the justice questions, then speak to a married same-sex couple from California leading the fight for equality, and look at today's case over the constitutionality of DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. We'll also speak to the widower of the late Gary Studs, the nation's first openly gay congressman. To this day, he's unable to receive the pension provided to surviving spouses of members of Congress. Then we'll go to North Dakota, which has enacted a series of anti-choice measures that could effectively end abortion in the state. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Supreme Court's confronting the issue of same-sex marriage for a second day in a row today. Justices will hear arguments on the constitutionality of the Defense of Marriage Act that denies federal benefits to legally married same-sex couples. On Tuesday, the justices considered the legality of California's Proposition 8 ban on same-sex marriage. Remarks from the justices suggested they're wary of endorsing a broad right for same-sex couples to marry, despite what many marriage equality advocates had hoped. We'll have more on the two historic cases after headlines. Protests are continuing in Cyprus as the country's economic crisis has appeared to deepen following the negotiation of a massive European bailout. Officials are expected to unveil new controls before banks reopen to stave off a rush by people concerned about their savings. Large depositors in Cyprus are now reportedly facing losses of roughly 40%. On Tuesday, employees at the country's largest bank occupied their workplace amidst fear they could lose their jobs.
It is a big demonstration. The workers of the Bank of Cyprus have shown once more that they are demanding their rights. We are carrying out a very dignified and peaceful protest, and it is only to secure the rights of the employees of the Bank of Cyprus.
In Egypt, a leading blogger and activist has been released after turning himself in for questioning amidst a feared crackdown on opposition protesters. Alaa Abdel Fattah was one of 5 activists whose arrests were ordered after violent clashes last week between supporters and opponents of President Mohamed Morsi. He was accused of inciting violence on social media. Alaa wore a prison jumpsuit as he turned himself into the Prosecutor General's office in order to show his willingness to go to jail, but he was released following hours of questioning. Alaa was a leading voice in the revolution that ousted President Hosni Mubarak and was imprisoned for 2 months in a high-profile case while Egypt was under military control. After his release without charge in December 2011, Alaa appeared on Democracy Now! And described the conditions in the prison.
I was in a complete darkness for 5 days. It was very filthy and very crowded. There was 9 of us in a 2x3 meters cell, having no access to water or toilet except 10 minutes per day. So basically they knew they couldn't torture me because of the solidarity and the media attention. So they just made sure to try and use every other measure to put me at discomfort or at a psychological pressure.
To see our full interview with Alaa Abdel Fattah, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. A mass protest is expected today in Chicago against the city's decision to close 54 public schools, mostly in African-American neighborhoods. Some 30,000 students will be impacted. Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, President Obama's former chief of staff, has defended the closings, saying he doesn't want students trapped in failing schools. Chicago Teachers Union President Karen Lewis has announced that today, quote, some of us are going to put our bodies on the line. North Dakota has enacted a series of historic anti-choice measures that could effectively end abortion in the state. On Tuesday, Republican Governor Jack Dalrymple signed a measure banning abortion once an embryonic heartbeat is detectable, which can happen at 6 weeks of pregnancy or even earlier. A second law signed by the governor aimed at shutting down the state's only abortion clinic requires hospital admitting privileges for abortion providers. And a third makes North Dakota the first state to ban abortion sought because of genetic abnormalities. We'll have more on the broadcast on North Dakota with the head of the state's only clinic and a Republican lawmaker opposed to the new laws. Former CIA Director David Petraeus has apologized publicly for the extramarital affair that forced him to resign last November. His speech Tuesday to military veterans and ROTC students at the University of Southern California is seen as a possible step by Petraeus toward a new career in the private sector. Before leading the CIA, Petraeus directed troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. He apologized for the affair he had with his biographer, Paula Broadwell.
I join you keenly aware that I am regarded in a different light now than I was a year ago. I'm also keenly aware that the reason for my recent journey was my own doing. So please allow me to begin my remarks this evening by reiterating how deeply I regret and apologize for the circumstances that led to my resignation from the CIA and caused such pain for my family, friends, and supporters.
President Obama has appointed Julia Pearson as the first woman ever to lead the Secret Service, an agency charged with protecting the president, his family, and other officials. Pearson's a longtime Secret Service agent who previously served as a police officer in Orlando, Florida. She takes over from Mark Sullivan, whose tenure was marked by scandal after it was revealed agents had hired sex workers during a presidential trip to Colombia. A group of 5 countries say they have reached a deal to challenge the U.S.-dominated World Bank and International Monetary Fund by creating their own development bank. Leaders from the so-called BRICS countries, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are gathered in Durban, South Africa for a 2-day summit. Together, the countries account for 25% of global GDP and 40% of the world's population. The Environmental Protection Agency says more than half of rivers and streams in the United States are in such unhealthy shape they cannot adequately support aquatic life. EPA sampling found more than 55% of waterways tested were in poor condition, compared to just 21% in good health. The most widespread cause was pollution fueled by human activity with high levels of phosphorus, a component of fertilizers, pesticides, and detergents found in 40% of rivers and streams. New research says oil drilling was likely behind a major earthquake that struck Oklahoma in 2011. A study published Tuesday in the journal Geology says the 5.6 magnitude quake was caused by oil waste being pumped deep underground. The quake injured 2 people, damaged homes, and was felt across 14 states. It was the largest earthquake to hit the central United States in decades and the largest ever recorded in Oklahoma. 2 Ithaca, New York residents have been released on bond after refusing to answer questions about their immigration status as they attempted to board a domestic flight in Texas. Omar Figueiredo and Nancy Morales were stopped twice by Border Patrol agents before they could proceed to a security checkpoint at an airport in Brownsville, Texas. Both times they refused to disclose their citizenship status. The first time, they missed their flight. After returning a second time and refusing to answer again, they were arrested by police and held for roughly 7 hours. They documented both incidents on video. Democracy Now! Spoke with Omar Figueiredo after he was released on Tuesday.
What I was really trying to accomplish was to put into question the authority that the Border Patrol has to harass and to force people to answer questions that they don't have to answer when they're traveling within the 60 to 100-mile border zone in the U.S.
Both Omar Figueiredo and Nancy Morales are U.S. citizens. Omar said his action was part of a larger trend of people refusing to answer what they say are unwarranted and racially targeted questions at Border Patrol checkpoints and then uploading video footage online. And activists in New York City staged a flash mob inside a pharmacy Tuesday to demand unfettered access to emergency contraception. The morning after pill is available over the counter to those 17 and older, but in 2011, Obama's Health and Human Services had overruled FDA drug regulators for the first time in history and rejected making it available without a prescription for everyone. The group National Women's Liberation has been fighting for access through a federal lawsuit with a decision expected in the next week. At Tuesday's action, dozens of people stocked boxes of Plan B on the shelves. Brooke Eleazar-Mack said she joined the lawsuit in part because of her own experience.
As a teenager, I needed the morning after pill, and I couldn't get it. Because of the age requirement, I couldn't buy it on my own. And so I risked pregnancy rather than being able to buy a safe and effective form of birth control. And no girl or woman should have to do that. And what do we want? Morning after pill! Where do we want it? Over the counter! Out of the shadows and over the counter!
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.